Hello, welcome, coaches, CWPA community. Thank you for joining us for our presentation of Beyond the Pool, Building Communication, Leadership, and Purpose in Water Polo Teams. Just a thank you to Kellyanne here for setting it up and hosting this event, and to Dan Sheridan, Ed Haas, and the rest of the CWPA for allowing us to speak today. So thank you. Who we are.
Yeah, so my name is Jen Parra-MacDougall. I went to UC-Santa Cruz. I got my bachelor's in neuroscience and minored in linguistics. I then, after graduating, while I was at UC-Santa Cruz, I was a D3 athlete. And as I was graduating, our program actually was switched to a club team. And so when we started up club, I kind of helped out with that process of becoming a club team, and then was an assistant coach for the teams that I had just been on. And then after that, I went on to get my master's in education, emphasis in special education, and taught for about 6 years, and then went on to, at that time, we moved to Florida, and then I got my master's in geospatial information science and technology. And while we were in Florida, we coached for the University of Central Florida, and came back to California and came back to the Santa Cruz area, and then kind of took back over the UCSC men's and women's club coaching. And then,
So Jen and I were both the goalies for the final NCAA Division III team at UC Santa Cruz, like Jen mentioned. We were part of the group that helped found the club teams with the CWPA with Dan Sheridan's help at the time. Jen was actually coached me in my final seasons as well. And yeah, like she said, we both moved out to Florida together, where I took over as the UCF men's head coach. Jen was my assistant for that. And then when we came back to California, Jen took over as the women's head coach for the UCSC women's team. I was the head coach for the UCSC men's team, and we assisted each other up until the pandemic. Post-pandemic, I had the opportunity to go initially be the graduate assistant at Mercyhurst University. And then after a short spell as interim head coach, was named official head coach for the men's and women's programs for the previous 2 years before this year. Learned a lot, had a great time, but 10 months a year away from my wife was too much. So I resigned at the end of the season, this past season. And after overseeing the transition from NCAA D2 to D1, currently I am coaching at the junior college level here in California at Cabrillo College, the JC here in Santa Cruz area. And last week, after my first win on the team, I might be one of the only people with wins at all three levels of varsity, Division 3, 2, and 1. At the collegiate club level as a player and a coach, and then at the junior college level as a coach now. So very involved in college water polo.
Kind of a funny little occurrence that happened last week.
Yeah. So into our presentation here. Let's see, our agenda for the day. We have a little freeze on my computer here. 1 second.
Yeah, so just a couple of the things that we're going to go over kind of today. Finding your why, forming, storming, norming, performing, some communication pieces that follows into leadership, and then selecting your captains, just some final wrap-up thoughts. And then we have a few resources that are just on the screen for you guys to look at the end.
So first, I think that this is a really good way to start goal setting for your team at the beginning of each season. And it's based on find your why. A lot of you might be familiar with Simon Sinek and his golden circle concept, where most organizations know their what they do, their how they do it, but many don't know their why. And I think this translates really well to water polo. Where we all know what we're doing out there. We're playing water polo. We're trying to score goals. How we're doing that is through swim sets and drills and teamwork. But I think a lot of teams fail to understand why they're truly out there. And the most successful organizations, the most successful teams have that deep embedded reason why, this deep purpose, this emotional connection to their organization, to their team. And it really just pushes them to the level. So Simon Sinek and his, I think it's the most watched TED Talk on YouTube. In his golden circle, he uses Apple as a common example of, yeah, there are plenty of companies that make good phones and computers, but really what sets them apart is that their company why is that they believe in challenging the status quo and doing things differently than their competitors, and that really sets them apart. So implementing finding your why, it's somewhat of a long session, but it's not difficult, and I think it's really rewarding. And there's a couple different ways you can do this. I recommend splitting the team into either pairs or small groups, having every single player share with each other in those small groups or just one-on-one stories of why they play water polo. And especially when they get to the higher high school and collegiate levels, they have these stories, like moments that they were proud of, moments that they were really energized or connected or felt like a team, just these emotional responses to why they do things. And sharing those stories become powerful, and it gets your voice out there, especially freshmen on college teams, freshmen on high school teams, new members to club teams, getting to share why they do this with their teammates. I think you learn a lot about each other, especially if, you're not a super close-knit group to begin with. And it really just helps, everyone grow to start the season. And then sharing the most poignant stories from those small groups or one-on-one with the entire team. Typically, it's someone that heard the story that then repeats it to the group to make sure that we're listening and engaged, and how it's conveyed. And then you, as the mediator, the head coach, or assistant coach, whatever your role is, you're searching for common themes throughout. And then, like what I used to do at Mercyhurst, we were lucky to have a room with 3 whiteboards. I know my good friend and mentor Josh Hauer at Wagner University, he splits his team into groups and they use big butcher paper sheets, and they're all just putting up common themes and they're trying to develop goals for their team. And then just common goals out of those stories of why people play, they start to emerge. And then you try and put together a sentence that really encapsulates your season, your goals, and how to move forward. So Josh at Wagner, he shared one of their more recent ones that they came up with was to prove that the strength of the team depends on the kind of people we have and not where the people are from. And that was just really poignant with these really diverse team he has from around the country and around the world. And it just meant a lot to those girls. And I think these statements just really connect people, and there's a neuroscience connection there.
Yeah, so like Blair is saying, people often understand, obviously, what they're doing and most of the time how they're going to accomplish it, but not really why. And so there's this really good correlation between the golden circle and the human brain. So the human brain is technically made up of 3 kind of different sections, but what we'll talk about here is the limbic brain and the neocortex. So that neocortex is your logical, unemotional part of the brain. So all of this.
Sorry, I think you cut out there a bit.
Okay, can you still hear us?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, cool. So again, just that neocortex is really important in thinking about that future behavior and options, and that kind of corresponds to the what, right? So what you're actually doing, but it can often trigger the limbic system, which is our emotional and social relational system, which can cause stress, anxiety, self-doubt, as well as determination, courage, and contentment. So it kind of depends on how you frame the whatever kind of emotion comes up from that limbic brain. And so these emotions are really helpful for figuring out your why and leading to forge that path between why into how into what, and making sure that that process is really well thought out, so you don't end up going into that more like negative thinking side of things, and really kind of remembering why you're there.
And if we just have this emotional connection to our team that's really positive to begin each season, then we're really excited and energized to get started with our team. But something really important to remember is team progress is not linear. Coming out of your Find Your Why sessions, everyone is really high. They're really excited. This is when expectations are at their highest point. The sky is the limit. We're all bonded, we're all emotional, and we just think that we can accomplish anything. We're setting goals of can we have an 80% 6-on-5 conversion percentage? Can we win our conference? Can we win our conference championship? But things don't just proceed up from there. We run into
that would be like a storming situation. So some sort of adversity strikes, whether you have a series of injuries that occur on your team, you have players that aren't necessarily getting along, people are losing sight of that why and all of that excitement and heightened expectations early in that forming stage. Kind of just determining that not all your goals are going to be realized, and you kind of the shiny part of your season and team is kind of lost, and as a result of that your productivity wanes, so the buy-in kind of lessens, and you see that intensity at practice or in games go down. And like Blair was saying, the progress isn't going to be linear. So you might end up in the storming phase, and then you have to go into the norming. So recalibrating with your teams, a new set of expectations, or reaffirming the expectations that were set in that forming stage. And really being realistic with your team about the goals that can be accomplished and what it means for the team, and really taking a hard look and a lens to the things that happened to lead you to that storming area, and putting some constructive feedback on those things. And hopefully through that norming phase, you'll kind of see an increase back into team buy-in and that productivity, an increase in camaraderie, and you'll kind of work through some of that.
Yeah, and then norming ideally leads to performing, where once again the coaches and the team members are satisfied with the new progress of the team. And this is where we as individuals start to feel that the sum of our team is greater than the parts going into it. This is when can-do and excitement attitude reemerges, and this is the time when our water polo knowledge, our knowledge of our teammates, of our coaches should be increasing. But remember, none of this is linear. Just because we've made it through one storm phase doesn't mean that we won't fall back into it. Maybe a star player enters the transfer portal, or injuries, or who knows, a host of other issues could then rebring a storm, and it takes incredible communication and resilience to move on from all of those storms throughout a season into the norming phase, and then finally back into performing. And even some teams have to go all the way back to forming midway through their season to just completely redefine who they are as a team.
And so one of the obviously greatly important pieces of that is the communication piece, like, because you're never going to get through any of that without proper communication. So how best do you communicate? And so from my perspective, in life, in sports, effective communication is integral to everything. The way in which we communicate with each other impacts the effectiveness of the information that we exchange. So it's really, really important to keep this in mind when you're coaching. If the players you're coaching aren't internalizing the information you're trying to provide, then our efforts and time, their time, are all wasted. So I think I come from an education background, so oftentimes I feel like coaches get into coaching because they have a love for the sport, they have a huge wealth of knowledge, and they'd like to participate in the community still. But what's kind of missing sometimes is that kind of teaching aspect. At the end of the day, we are teaching our players to play a sport, or to play a sport more effectively or efficiently. And we really need to have kind of communicating with them at the core of it, so that we can actually make progress. And so a really, really great way to be able to communicate effectively is to understand how people best receive feedback or receive praise. So a great way to do this, and something that we've had success in, is to provide questionnaires for your players, whether this be through Google Forms or just you hand out a note card to everybody, they fill it out and they give it back to you. This can all be done in various stages, whether you want it to be anonymous, whether you, obviously, if you want that feedback and to be able to action on it player by player, you'll need to know who is saying what, but also useful for other things. But really having an understanding of how best people receive support when things are going well. I have players where if their teammates get to like up and excited and like kind of in their space, it kind of takes them out of the game. And once we've talked through things, they know that about themselves, and they'd rather have that celebration kind of after the game or something like that. And same thing for how best they receive support when things aren't going to plan. So say they miss a shot, they have more ejections that they'd like. Some players would really like that support to look like their teammates really rallying behind them and kind of psyching them up. And some players would really prefer if people just like left them alone and didn't really call it into attention, and they'll kind of recenter their mindset on their own. And really having that understanding between yourself and your players, and the player in between the players themselves, is hugely important. Imagine you have the best intentions of helping out your teammate, but you actually send them farther down the rabbit hole of frustration just because you assumed that they needed your support in a way that they didn't. And so this is true for a practice, this is true for games, and this is also very true for, as coaches, we often are really stable adult figures in these people's lives, and we often come into contact with them coming to us with life problems or issues or just things that they're excited about. And being able to really understand how to best support them through those situations as well is immensely important. It's a huge part of the coaching experience as well.
And this, sorry to cut you off.
No, fine.
And this goes across genders as well. I've had men's players that absolutely need to be told, you're doing great, you're doing really well, even when they make mistakes. I've had women's players that have asked me, please yell at me in a game when I've made a mistake. A lot of people think maybe the women's team needs to be coddled more than the men's team, but it is very player by player, and understanding that directly as their coach through these one-on-one questionnaires really seems to make a really big difference.
Yeah. And so then being really mindful with the information that you receive from your teammate, like from the players, and having their teammates also be aware, like doing this early in the season and having everybody be aware like of this information and how to actually use it in a mindful way is great. And then just having them practice that effective communication throughout the season.
Absolutely. So yeah, we're going to continue with just a little bit more communication. I know that one of my most trying reasons at Mercyhurst, we had to sit down our team, have everyone on the deck sit in a circle and talk about, this is how I want my teammates to interact with me when things are going well, when things are going poorly. And it really made a big difference. Our goalie that year was just like, I have to drop my voice down so that the sound waves travel across water, because my normal speaking voice doesn't care. You can't hear me when I speak like that. I'm not actually yelling at you, which had caused issues on the team where it's like, why is she screaming at me all the time? No, it's just she wants to be heard. And so really just understanding these, having these conversations can progress the team.
Yeah. And then in particular, when it comes to water polo, building on that communication into something that's actually useful for playing the game. So building in communication into every drill that's applicable. So say you're running a driving drill where it's like a ball side drive, and you want your players to call for the ball and either wet or dry, as they're driving through. This is hugely important for making sure you don't have a bunch of errant passes. You actually can capitalize on those small advantages that we all want to have during the game, but building it into practice. So making it a part of the directions when you provide the drill, and then restarting the drill if someone hasn't actually communicated during the drill.
And I think that's a huge part, is being willing to restart the drill. I think every coach we've had has said, hey, call for the ball when you do this drive. But many do not hold the team accountable to actually do so. And we move through, and then you go into your first games and we're throwing balls at the backs of people's heads. They're going to start a turn when you thought maybe they were doing their V out. And this is where those issues come in. And in practice, we have to be practicing this, how to communicate with each other.
Yeah. And so you can also foster some of this with some like games outside of the pool to just like building camaraderie and a little bit of fun. Some that are kind of fun is like a no see, no hear, no speak task. So you have 3 players working as a team, one that can't see, one that has headphones, and one that can't speak. And you have them try and complete a task together. And it can be really enlightening to figure out how to problem solve in those situations.
Or one that I developed at Mercyhurst kind of by accident for an Easter practice. And we used eggs, but you could use colored ping pong balls. Anything that floats, basically. Where we had a team of 18, so we had 9 pairs of 2. Obviously pairs of 2. But then we sent a number of, everyone had 6 those plastic Easter eggs of each color thrown into the pool. One partner's in the water blindfolded, the other is on the deck communicating. And it is a race to see who can gather the most. And then you are learning. You're trying to put together people that aren't maybe the best of friends on the team, that don't communicate as much throughout other elements. And then they learn how to work and communicate together. It sounds silly and fun, but it really made a big difference.
Yeah. And then something else that I really like to have, like to do, is, so say you have like a 6-on-6 in practice and you have 5 offensive opportunities for one team, then you switch O and D. At the end of each of those offensive opportunities, calling on a player to really explain either what went well or what could have been done differently, so that it starts to put some of the onus of figuring out what to do and what happened and what to try instead back on the players. They hear us talk about, you need to do XYZ. And after a while, it becomes useful for a teammate to say it, or for them to think of it on their own. So they're actually actively engaged in figuring out how to play the sport better. It really raises the IQ of your players if you have them start to take a little bit of ownership over what should have happened. You can use the same strategy for film as well. And it's something else that I really like as well, is to have players repeat back what I've just described. So this either constitutes like a movement or a drill, or if I provided feedback to a certain play that just occurred, just having them literally repeat it back to me, I think kind of helps solidify some of that information. And then something else that I've found a lot of success with is providing opportunities for the players to teach each other. So if you have a player that's really good at like an inside turn, or is really good at sealing off in set, having that player actually teach the other players on the team can really help foster a little bit of leadership. It can help them think about their movements in a really specific way, so that if you're able to teach something, it really makes you kind of break down the component parts of it, and then you have a better understanding of how you're actually doing it and how to elaborate onto it.
Yeah, and not even always the player that is the best on the team. Maybe someone just learned how to do that backside or inside turn. Now have them go teach it to someone that hasn't quite mastered that skill yet. And it'll really just cement that in that new player's mind.
Yeah, exactly.
And then just quickly on conflict resolution, we have to remember all of our high school and college athletes today are Generation Z, Generation A. Most of them have never had a deeply emotional conversation face to face. When conflict arises, oftentimes we see that this arises from text messages or something that was said on social media or just backhanded passive aggressive comments made in practice. I have the most success with bringing two or three offending players that are having their issue, their conflict, bring them into an office, into a controlled space with you as the mediator, have them look each other in the eye and just present both sides of the argument. Hey, I saw it this way. Hey, I saw it this way. Almost everybody on your teams wants the team to be successful and wants to enjoy coming to practice and playing together. But the fact that a lot of our athletes today have just never had a deeply emotional or honest conversation face to face with someone before is just something. It's a skill that needs to be fostered in our world in general, and then especially on your team. And it's just the way that I've found the best way to deal with conflicts right away, face to face. It might be a little uncomfortable to begin with, but I think everyone can move forward if just treated like adults in that way.
Yeah, and that kind of leads us into our next topic is kind of fostering that emergent leadership. So, yeah.
And I'm sure most teams already have something like this, but to reiterate in case you don't, if you are at a 4-year university or a club where players are there for a long time, 4 years or so, it's nice to build committees that are running your team. It takes a burden off of you, deciding on food on the road, the uniforms, the player gear for the season, certain aspects of practice maybe that's up to the players, and putting together committees, ideally, that at Mercyhurst, every committee we had was 1 senior, 1 junior, 1 sophomore, 1 freshman. So as every senior graduates, you have 3 players with experience already running this element of the team. They invite someone else in new, and then this is what really builds institutional stability so that you're not relearning, reteaching new groups every year of doing so. Some teams don't have that ability. Myself right now at the junior college level, we have a team of 13 girls. We can't have 4 players on every element of the team. But my head coach right now, he comes from Navy. He was a search and rescue diver in the Navy for years. He has a petty officer system where everybody on the team has some role where they get to take ownership of the team out of the pool, away from practice, whether that's you're the one responsible for music during our swim sets, you're the one responsible for putting gear away in the shed at the end of practice. And then every PO has a backup petty officer in case someone's not at practice, and it just allows the 2-year JC players to then mentor someone under them, and then everyone has just ownership throughout the team with some small element, and it just provides more buy-in from the team.
And then so through all of that, you kind of get voices of influence. So you want to start to identify people who are actually forming that kind of leadership space on your teams. And ways in which to do that is practicing in those practicing it in a high stress situation.
So actually in practice, make someone that is not a captain the honorary captain or coach. Hey, your team in a 6-on-6 scrimmage, you're down by 2, there's 90 seconds left. Knowing what we do on offense and defense, what are you going to do to guide your group of 6 right now to win? How are you going to score and get the ball back, or get a stop and score and send this into overtime or win the game? And so literally in the pool, I like to, when I know a shooting drill is about to end, just stop everybody and hey, everybody watch this player. If they make this shot right now, we have less sprints at the end of practice. They never know how many sprints we have planned at the end of practice anyway. They don't know if that's a bluff or not. But then it has everyone on the team watching one of your players take that shot, or it puts it on the goalie. Can they make that save? And just trying to leverage those high stress situations in practice as much as possible. You can take that one step further, assign players, knowing that at quarter breaks or timeouts, a player might have, depending on your coaching style, 10 to 20, maybe 30, probably not more than 30 seconds to actually talk to their teammates without you, the coach, conveying strategy or what it is. But give them scenarios. Hey, you're the goalie. Your team is not shot blocking. We are getting lit up from the outside. How are you going to come in and in 15 seconds convey to your teammates that you need a better effort shot blocking, taking away that third of the cage so that you can compete as a team moving forward? Have them write this out. Assign them a small journal entry. It's 100 words at max typically. If it's a 30-second speech, I think it's 200 or less words. It's less than a paragraph. You can take it a step further beyond that and then have everyone on the team assign them a scenario. Now you have to give a 15 to 30-second speech to the team. Practice this. We see in sports movies all the time what an inspirational word from a teammate can do to a squad. Many people don't have that ability to just be inspirational. This is a talent that needs to be practiced. And if you don't create an atmosphere to do so, I don't think a lot of people are going home on their own, looking in a mirror and practicing this on their own. And then if you have, this one's a little bit more tricky, but if you have the right group of people and you need to either encourage or or a reality check some of your players, you can do the same thing and have members of your team give speeches as other members of your team. Maybe you have your captain give a speech as maybe the shyest member of your team. And this could encourage her. Hey, this is how I'm seen. This is what my voice could mean to the team. Maybe you have kind of an arrogant problem player, and then they see how others portray them to the rest of the team, and it's kind of a wake-up call. Again, that one can be a bit more dangerous, can sow distrust. Takes a special committed group for that to be really effective, but I've seen success in the past with the right group. And I think selecting captains is just one of the most important things on your team.
Yeah, so as Blair said, that kind of leads you into you see kind of who's emerging as a leader, and then you want to be able to select captains for your team. And like you said, it's super important for the culture of your team. It really kind of sets the tone for how you move forward. It provides your players with a kind of hierarchy of communication. If they don't feel comfortable coming directly to you, they can talk to their captain, and the captain can bring the information to you, all that sort of a thing. And
yeah, and it's important as a coach to have a honest pipeline to the vibe of the team. What are the thoughts on their private group chat? What is being said about your practices? And then who is really encouraging the effort, the buy-in to your system? It cannot be just you on deck at all times yelling. That is not what conveys and permeates culture. You need captains pushing as well. And something that I really have seen success with is staging it like a true interview. And I encourage everyone from freshmen, anyone that might have interest at some point of being a captain on the team, set a formal interview process. Have them apply to the job of captainship. Some of them know, hey, I'm not going to get it this year, but I'm going to start thinking about these things for future years. Make them put together a resume. Make them dress like they would for an interview. Come in, speak with you and your assistant coaches with prepared questions, and then prepare them for the real world, what it will be like to interview for a job. Any of you that have done this. I like giving, in this setting, hypothetical situations. What would you do in this scenario? A ref treated us this way. I, the coach, was red carded. What are you going to do for the team as the captain? And it gets them thinking about these leadership opportunities and how they would approach situations. And it just gives them more ownership and a invaluable real world experience. Because many of you know, there's very little scarier than going in for your first job interview as a 18 to 22-year-old trying to impress a panel of people with prepared questions if you've never done so. So this is just a multifaceted benefit for your team. And then I think lastly, if possible, if you have the right personalities on your team, don't have it be the best players as your two captains. If you have someone that can be on the bench in high leverage situations, that is bringing the right energy, someone that has to work so hard for that 1 minute of playtime on your team, then everyone sees, hey, my voice matters as well here. If that player who is not our top goal scorer, who does not play a lot of minutes, is respected enough by the coach to be a captain on this team, then you know what, I can too. I can contribute as well. And I think that's just a good image. And sometimes your two best players, that's just what makes sense naturally.
Yeah.
But when possible, seek those diamonds in the rough that can really help perpetuate moving forward. And don't just default, hey, the two seniors that have been playing the longest are our captains. Sometimes a sophomore and a senior should be your captains, because that's what the team needs. And that's really up to you.
Yeah, absolutely. It sparked, sometimes it's also helpful to have someone who's not necessarily your best player really show that progress. Like they shine a light on being able to put in the effort, put in the work, and make strides and be a difference maker on the team. They might not score all the goals, but maybe they're your tops in assists, or maybe they're your tops in steals. And it shows the girls who are coming in that if I really work at this, I have a place. And I think that's really important.
Absolutely. These are some resources to look at. Every TED Talk listed on this page is on YouTube. I think that all have something great to offer in a different way. And a lot of what we talked about today was founded in some of these books. Definitely worth reading. And then my final thought is, to me, I approach every new college team that I coach, or club team. You are the adult in their life, in some of their most formative years that they see most often, especially if you're in college where kids have now left home, they're not around their parents, and it is you that they spend the most hours of some of their most formative years with. So being that example of the kind of man or woman that they want to grow up to be is just, it's a great honor. It is it's a burden, but an honor for you to be in that position, and you just want to convey and represent what they want to be when they grow up.
Yeah. And just hope this was helpful and just maybe shined a different kind of light on how to approach communicating with your team, and kind of really getting the best out of your team, with some more of those intangible kind of characteristics.
Yeah. And then, before going into questions, I think before this, we calculated the two of us have 47 years of water polo experience between the two of us. If anyone has any questions, wants to reach out, discuss 6-on-5 strategies, questions about training goalies, swim sets, please reach out. These are our email addresses. We're absolute water polo nerds and just want to keep this a tight community going forward at all times. Thanks so much for your time, and we'll turn it back over to Kellyanne here.
Awesome. That was great. I did have a question for you guys. Do you have any advice on maybe like boosting the confidence of some of the less confident players, kind of unleashing their inner potential?
Yeah. Something that I have done is like starting with that communication piece, obviously, with them, and figuring out how best they like to receive that information, but then really kind of building it into practice situations. So whether that be if we're working on taking our 5 meters or something, or we have this drill that we use sometimes, 21, where you have an offensive opportunity. If you score your counter, you stay. If you score in your front court, you stay. You play a 6-on-5 opportunity. If you score, you take a 5 meter. And so I will build it in and try and give those players who aren't as confident, I'll call them out and be like, you take the 5. And so in a controlled environment where they're supported, they're getting those opportunities to see that I have trust in them. to actually take that shot and give it a go. And I also like to have them be like, if I know that they're comfortable with it, I'll have them be the one to send us off with the cheer after practice, or have them be the one to lead the cheer before a game. Those sorts of things. I will intentionally try and get their opinion about something water polo related. So they get more comfortable actually speaking about water polo, interacting with their teammates a little bit more. I, of course, will always like call out anything positive that they've done in practice, as long as I know that it won't like kind of throw them off a little bit. If they are that type of player, I will communicate with them after practice and just like pull them aside like briefly and be like, hey, like I saw you were super on your legs when you on all your shooting today. That was incredible. Like, please keep that up, that sort of a thing. So really just kind of like peppering in those times.
Yeah. And I would say, I mean, that's great. Additionally, asking them one-on-one, hey, what is it that you are the least comfortable with? And then working with them one-on-one to raise those things outside of practice time, or on their own end, if you can have assistant coaches or something else run a different part of the drill so that they can build just that confidence in what they feel least confident in. And then this is where it's important to have good captains where, hey, we know that X player, that Jen is really low right now. She's not confident in her shot. When she makes something, let's make sure that the team is really celebrating her. And it just goes a really long way. I mean, people just want to be validated by their peers at the end of the day. So
That's awesome. Those are some great suggestions. I loved all that you had to say. So thank you for sharing with us.
yeah, absolute pleasure.